Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Institute for Personal Development, where total consciousness is the new frontier. Kriya Yoga is the union of the individual with the divine. Join us as we explore the practices that initiate this process.
Well, good morning and welcome to the Voice of Yoga. Let's talk consciousness. I am your hostess, Lisa Winton, and with me I have my co-host today is Tony Anni, and with us is Kenny Toy, also known as Swami Jayananda, founder of Institute for Personal Development, located here in Hampton, New Hampshire. Good morning, Swami. Thanks for being here today. How are you?
I'm doing well. And you?
I'm doing great. And Tony, thanks for being here as well. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're blessed to have you with us today. Today, listeners, on the Voice of Yoga, we will be talking about human development and the 8 essential stages of Kriya Yoga. There are a few points I think we should make for our listeners today. The first is, I think we should talk about, what we discuss in your ashram, and that is human development along with the 8 essential stages of Kriya Yoga. And the second is you use an analogy about human development when you talk about the caterpillar, the chrysalis, and butterfly. So I was wondering, Swami, if you could discuss for our listeners what the 8 essential stages of Kriya Yoga are as a review for them, and maybe we can also go into your analogy about the butterfly, chrysalis, and caterpillar.
Yeah, the whole thing of when yoga was codified, when they wrote the whole thing down, it was done by a man named Patanjali. And when he did it in 8 essential stages. And those 8 essential stages are yamas, niyamas, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. And they translate into practices to do something. They're practices that are designed to initiate a process where the individual goes from unconscious awareness to self-conscious awareness to superconscious awareness. The goal of yoga is total consciousness. It's not about getting your hand to the floor or your foot on your head. It's really about expanding your mind beyond the limits of your physical body and eventually beyond the limits of your mental body. And that process where we go from unconscious awareness to self-conscious awareness to superconscious awareness is probably the most missing part in the yoga community today. And it is the thing that we really emphasize because the practices are designed to do something. And, the mythology of this plight of consciousness has been represented with things like the hero's journey, the separation, the tasks, the labors, and the return to become king. These metaphors, these myths, were ways of explaining, this hidden human potential. And, like you had said, we do use the metaphor of, the metamorphosis of a caterpillar. And it works really well because if you really cross-examine it and you look at it, caterpillars are insects in the larvae state. They typically do nothing but indulge. And the characteristics of the human in the larvae state, you're careless, you're emotional, you're indulgent, you're excitable. But the caterpillar doesn't wake up one morning and say, where did these wings come from? A caterpillar will go into a chrysalis. And in the chrysalis, the caterpillar shuts off the instincts and the appetites of the body. And the characteristics of the human in the chrysalis phase, you're careful, you're intelligent, you're ambitious, but you're abstinent. You're struggling with the things that you were craving in the larvae state. And if my choices were caterpillar or chrysalis, I personally would choose caterpillar every time. But the whole thing is that in the chrysalis, which was where the characteristics change from careless to careful, from emotional to intelligent, from indulgent to abstinent. That's when you had rituals, you had ceremonies, you had ordeals, you had ascetic practices that were specifically designed to initiate this process. Because from that chrysalis, the caterpillar emerges as a butterfly. And the butterfly has options that caterpillars don't. Caterpillars, they can only crawl around on the ground. But a butterfly, if it wants, it can crawl around on the ground. And if it wants, it can fly. It can access another medium and another dimension of reality and navigate through it. And, of course, the characteristics of the human in the adult state, you're carefree, you're wise, you're liberated, and enthusiastic. Now, on the surface, careless, emotional, indulgent, and excitable can be mistaken for carefree, wise, liberated, and enthusiastic. But with regard to the actual experience, there really isn't any comparison. So a big part of our approach to yoga is really process-oriented. It's really all about initiating this process. It's all about becoming this human in the adult state. And these are relatively revolutionary ideas, I think, that we've introduced into the yoga community today.
Now, Swami, you talk a lot about in your teachings about unlocking the hidden potential. Why would somebody want to even do that? What would be the benefits of an initiate to want to do that?
Well, that comes back to the whole thing that we talk about, that there is an innate drive in all of us that we want to be whole and we want to be complete. But, again, in order for us to actualize the experience of wholeness, we had to be taught how to transform. And that's a big part of the teaching that we do, is that we give people the physics of spirituality. That this isn't magic, it's instruction to do something. And, of course, it has an evidence procedure. When you're going from unconscious awareness to self-conscious awareness to superconscious awareness, there are observable guidelines. There are tangible signposts that one can follow with regard to, this process.
Thank you, Swami. If you don't mind, I'm going to ask my co-host a question. Tony, since you've been studying with Swami Jayananda at Institute of Personal Development, can you just maybe give us an example of how the training maybe has assisted you in your path for human development?
Yes. The one thing it's done is it's really allowed me to claim my power. I don't rely on external substances, behavior to solve what are seemingly everyday challenges. I also, I guess that would be the biggest thing. I'm certainly happier and healthier than I've ever been before. There's nothing, within reason, there's nothing that I can't do. I'm not pie in the sky up. I'm not a pie in the sky optimist. I'm very pragmatic. And this holistic health management system, as a former athlete, was really the most complete system and the most pragmatic. It's not a lofty process in my own words and in my own evaluation. And so I've tested it. I've tested it against, as Kenny talked about, mythology. I've tested it in my own faith, and there's a lot of similarities, but actually pulling out the raw essence of the process of this connection with the divine through Kriya Yoga has made all the difference.
Thank you, Tony. And Swami, back to you. We talk a lot about that people are just surviving, but they're not growing. Can you give us your thoughts and what we can do to maybe rectify that?
Well, in my opinion, I really think what has to happen is we have to reevaluate our education system. Because right now, what we're being taught is keeping us stuck in this regressive cycle. We have a lifestyle that doesn't enable us to grow. So again, we have to resurrect the whole concept of apotheosis, and bring this to the foreground, that we have this potential, but by thinking, breathing, eating, sleeping, and fornicating, we're just surviving, we're not growing. And, that's where the realms of religion was so valuable, because that's where we went to find this leadership. Now, because the communities and institutions that have taken over our religions have failed so bad, we're now substituting this intellectual, devotional mirage for true spiritual reality. And so, people are, they think they're doing better than they really are. And it's kind of like what von Goethe said, none are more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe that they're free. But one of the things that we have to be educated about is that this potential is our responsibility. And the other thing is that we have to put leadership in our education. We have to start to educating people in how to grow psychologically and spiritually in a positive direction again. Because that was like what the alchemists believed, that we could chronologically age and psychologically, spiritually remain in this underdeveloped state. And that's primarily what we're doing. We have therapy where people go and try and siphon off what's going on in their inner environment. But at very best, it may offer you relief, but it really isn't offering solution. Because basically the change does not go deep enough. They're not using the physical body, and they're not plugged into the physics of spirituality. But I think once you start to introduce this information, to a larger audience, because coming back to the 100-monkey theory, you could change the world pretty quickly, as people start to get the light in their soul.
I'm glad you brought up about the light in your soul. Would you recite the Chinese proverb for our listeners?
Well, when there's light in the soul, there's beauty in the person. When there's beauty in the person, there's harmony in the home. When there's harmony in the home, there's honor in the nation. And when there's honor in the nation, there's peace in the world. So a big part of, this spiritual advance that we've started is really educating people in how to get the light in the soul, how to feel connected to something that's pure, powerful, and sacred, and believe that you're good enough, and then from that platform start to become the change that we want to see. Because humans in the adult state, as we've been saying, are virtuous by nature. We need laws to uphold the conduct that you do naturally when you're a human in the adult state. But what we don't have is leadership in how to become this human in the adult state.
You had said about being connected, and I know we've talked about this before, but again, for our listeners, they may want to know, how do they know if they are connected?
Well, again, if you don't rebirth your body in the life force, then, that will start to give you your obvious clues. If you haven't purified your body, purged your body of your dependency on substances as common as, sugar, alcohol, nicotine, caffeine. If you're still drinking coffee, you can't get spirit in your body. That's the physics. This isn't something that happens accidentally or spontaneously, as a lot of people are claiming. This is a conscious connection to a source of sustenance that is invisible and intangible. And in order to do that successfully, you must purify your body. And then, once you have prepared the body, then there's a lot of mental training that you're actually looking for something that's invisible and intangible. And, of course, like we say, we use the breath as the tangible part. But then you also have to rebirth your body in it. Through repetition comes absorption. You have to change the reward circuits in your brain. You have to change your neurological pathways. That's why you practice. But once matter and mind come together with this new information, then the panel's wired. And, how do you know that you're connected? Well, breath becomes your party. Breath becomes your beloved. Breath becomes your new drug of choice. You're not abstaining, you're indulging.
Thank you, Swami. We're going to hold that thought for right now, and we're going to pause to hear a word from our sponsors. Listeners, we'll be back with you shortly.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam
If you are looking for a Samadhi-based experience, IPD Kriya Yoga has the goods. A complete yoga program that includes the practices and the process. Kriya Yoga Series 1 live classes and videos. Get your arms around the spiritual science of Kriya Yoga.
The intention of why we practice is to embody the spirit, to feel connected to the life force.
Kriya Yoga Asana live classes and videos. A cosmically engineered system of exercises to initiate apotheosis. A system of exercises engineered for dining and dancing at the Cosmic Ballroom. Kriya Yoga Series 2 live classes and videos. A practice in open forum designed to facilitate positive growth of consciousness. Get your Labyrinth video.
I find the positive side of this is it pulls a lot of things together.
Kriya Yoga Mantra and Meditation. With repetition comes absorption. Pray on prana and become divine.
At the same time, we all have a unique talent and gift to give back to the universe.
Private sessions. The mysteries of the universe have always been handed down verbally from teacher to student. Call or click now and get started. 603-929-0303 or www.ipdtransform.com. Namaste.
Well, welcome back. For those of you just joining us, you are listening to The Voice of Yoga, and we are talking consciousness. Tony, I'm going to turn it over to you. I believe you had a question for Swami.
Sure. Ken, I heard you say something that intrigued me, and you mentioned that if you're drinking coffee, you can't get spirit in your body. Now, what I automatically think is we all have some level of spirit in our body because we're alive, we're here. Could you clarify that? Perhaps there's different levels of actualization or connection.
Well, absolutely. I mean, if you have life, you're connected to the life force. But one of the things that we say here is the problem with humanity isn't God's love for humanity. The problem with the world is humanity's love for God. The whole thing of to desire the void or the nothing, which is the intention of the yoga practice, the union of the individual with this concealed deity, with this secret source of sustenance, requires a lot of refinement. Because we come in with a pattern, our physical bodies come in with programming, and we're drawn towards either particles or waves, which are dualistic. Now, the whole thing, and is the physics of spirituality. That we can draw from particles, we can draw from waves and survive, but we're not growing. So the distinction here is that, and the reason why you need this mutually exclusive relationship with this other source of sustenance is because it has a different return. It does something different than the dualistic dimensions do. And once you get a taste for that, and you experience the benefit, then, of course, the thought of going back is non-existent. But this, again, it's not an intellectual accomplishment. You literally have to rebirth your body in the life force so that you feel connected to this source of sustenance. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thanks.
Swami, earlier in the program you had mentioned about your Spiritual Advance program. I was kind of hoping that you might be able to talk to our listeners about that more in depth and what is it all about, what can they expect from the program, and ending with that last week in Costa Rica.
Yeah, the whole thing is about getting started. If you're a toe-in-the-water type of a person, that's fine, or if you want to go big. We have classes that we offer. We have a complete yoga program. And in order to really experience the benefits of yoga, you really need it all. That these 8 essential stages, they break down into practices. And your practices are going to be a path of action, a path of knowledge, and a path of devotion. But they're specifically designed to do something, to go from caterpillar to chrysalis to butterfly. They're designed to make a human being become something different, to become an adult. And the benefits of this experience of samadhi is that you have options. That the human in the adult state has the ability to be in the physical world, to be in the physical body, but then also has access to the invisible aspects of your makeup. That you can now transcend the limits of body-bound awareness. You also have an expanded sense of awareness. And then, again, one of the things that we're always talking about is with it comes this sense of purpose. Because once your identity aligns with the greater whole, you realize that we're all in this together. And the same soul that's animating you is animating me. And true enlightenment doesn't happen until each and every one of us passes over the threshold. So a big part of the work that we're doing is trying to get people involved. And wherever you want to start, take an asana class, take the theory class, join in on theory 2. And if you're inclined, come to the retreat. But whatever, you can do, the main thing is to understand that, just like we have been saying, if you're driving somewhere and you miss your turn, to continue going in the same direction you're going isn't necessarily getting you closer to your destination. So it's oftentimes the one that turns back first, makes the most advancement. And so again, if you're recognizing that your life, that you're struggling or you're having problems or you think you're just pretending to be doing better than you really are, then, join us. Because I think we definitely have answers for a lot of the common problems that most people are struggling with.
Well, I have to add to that because, Ken, we recognize that you're a heck of a Swami, but you're a little challenged in terms of marketing this incredible event. The one thing that makes this event, without sounding like a salesman myself, which I'm not, the one thing that makes this event different is it actually starts now. There are weekly posts leading up to this particular event. So the real opportunity is to take advantage and start to get involved in learning on a weekly basis what's happening at IPD on the website and via Facebook. And then, of course, the culmination is this week, this spiritual advance in Costa Rica, which will, act as a series of, first a refresher to bring everything together, and also to check you on where you are in the practice, whether you're a beginner or you're advanced. And then, recognize that you'll have all of the instructors from the Institute for Personal Development there. So, for every 3 people, there'll be 1 instructor. So at worst, take a look at what's going on Facebook, and start to see the progression leading up to this event. If there's any questions regarding the event, you can email questions to contact@ipdtransform.com.
So you would recommend to somebody who hasn't studied any yoga at all, just maybe start with an asana program. Maybe give you a call because you're available for lessons as well. Is that correct?
Private. Yeah, I do private sessions, sure. Yeah. And the other thing is, too, if let's say you're a couple, and you wanted to just, get your foot in the water, that, the private session is the same price whether it's 2 people or 5 people. It's the same hourly rate, which, what we're really trying to do is spread the word. We're trying to get people engaged, because that's probably one of the biggest barriers, I think, today, are people aren't motivated to grow psychologically and spiritually because they don't realize that they're in the realms of suffering and decay. And there's really not much call to urgency, except for, when we're in, our normal crisis, which typically isn't really substantial enough to get you out of the regressive cycle. You need additional help is the way that it works. And that's what I think, our programs are very different. That you don't become a member of an organization. You come here and you learn how to connect to something that is always with you. And you have the benefit of internal support and not dependency upon, a teacher or a community. It's not about external reinforcement. It's about claiming personal power.
So even if somebody had studied yoga with somebody else, I feel you still have a lot more to offer somebody, because I think, in my experience anyway, you're the only one that is taking this to this kind of a level, really trying to bring this message globally.
Unfortunately, I have a tendency to agree with you. We've been watching a lot of the movies that have been out lately, and very disappointing in, the quality of the instruction and how really off-point most of it is, especially with yoga and this whole concept of brahmacharya. It's not something that's mentioned, in your first introduction to this concept of yoga. And that's where I think we excel. We immediately get people connected to what they really do need. And I think we should probably start to wrap it up. So I'll wish everybody a good day and namaste.
Thank you, Swami. So in closing, again, inviting the listeners to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, visit our website. Keep those comments and questions and curiosities coming. We do enjoy hearing from you. But be sure to tune into our program next week, where Swami will be talking about the new moon, which will be in Leo on the 26th. So with that, thank you for listening to our program, The Voice of Yoga. I am Lisa Winton. With me is Tony Anni. Tony, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Lisa. It was a lot of fun.
And with me, Swami Jayananda will be signing off. Have a Kriya Yoga kind of day. Namaste. Right.